Hello, in this program tutorial we'll be looking at point lights in Unity. More specifically, we're going to try to make lights flicker to make a more immersive environment, as well as enable and disable lights depending on the distance the player is from the light. So our first task is to make lights flicker programmatically. And this can help create a more dynamic environment, as normally when you put down a point light, it's just there and not moving at all. And this is great for creating more atmosphere, specifically for maybe horror games or games that have a darker environment. So here's the Unity scene that we're going to be working in. It is basically just a default URP scene with a few minor changes. So as you can see, there's no sun. Deleted that so that the point light is more obviously visible. And then we also have a player capsule, which is tagged as player. That will be used later. Alright, so on our point light, we're going to want to add a new script. I've called this script flicker light, and then we'll open that up in Rider. Here it is. We're going to want to have a field for that point light so we can access it and change its behavior. In the start method, we're then going to want to set the point light using getComponent of light. So I will find the light and set the value of this variable, or this field. Great, so now after we have gotten that component, we're going to want to start a code routine. And this, we'll call this just flicker. Oh, flicker, like that. And then define that down here. And this has to return IEnumerator, because that's just how coroutines work. Okay. So what does this coroutine do? Well, there should be only a small chance that the light actually does flicker. We'll make it a 1 in 10 chance. So let's use randomness for that. So if we decide that the light will flicker in this time, then we're going to want to decide how many times it will flicker. So maybe between 3 and 10 times, and just keep in mind min inclusive, max exclusive. That's for all random.range with ints. So we decide how many times it will flicker and if it even does flicker, so let's use those. Just write a basic for loop here. And all we have to do to make a light flicker really is just to change the intensity of the point light. We'll use some randomness again, 0 and 6. And we include 0 here so that the light can actually have a chance of completely turning off, because that's sometimes how light that's going bad will behave. And after we actually change the intensity, rather than immediately going to the next step in the for loop, we're going to want to wait a little bit, and this will just make it a little bit easier on the eyes, so it's not just constantly flashing you. We're going to want to say yield return, we wait for seconds, and once again, randomness. This can be very small, just enough so that there's a very slight pause. Great. And after it is done with this loop, we're going to want to set the intensity back to normal. So we'll say the intensity is 5. Okay, and so now it's decided if it's going to flicker. It flickers a certain number of times. What are we going to want to do after that? Well, we shouldn't immediately check to see if it's going to flicker again. So another yield return. We'll do the trick here. We'll wait for seconds, random range, 1 and 3. So after it has its own time of flickering, it will then wait between 1 and 3 and then decide if it's going to flicker again. And finally, we just have to keep all of this inside of a loop, because once we start a light, it should be constantly running this. For future use, we're just going to say while it's enabled, because we're later going to be enabling and disabling those lights, and we don't want to have this running while the light is disabled. There's no point because you can't see it. So let's just have it like that. All right, and back to Unity. If we click play in this scene, we should see the light actually flicker, which is our intended behavior. We'll just go into the scene view to see it a little bit better. Perfect, that's exactly what we're looking for. Our second task is to disable lights that are far away from the player, because there's really no need to calculate lighting or have these running if the player can't really even see them. So as you can see in this simple little diagram, player is 5 meters away from the light, so it should be on. But if they are 10 meters away, the light will be off. And that's not too bad to do in Unity, so let's go see how you do it. First, we need to have a field for the player. So private game object player, and set that in the start, similar to the point light. But rather than using get component, we're going to want to use game object dot find component with tag. And the tag, as you might remember, we tagged the capsule to be a player. So that will find the player and set the field. All right, so now that we have the player, we can use them down here. Player dot transform dot position, and we're going to want to subtract from this game object's transform position, and finally get the magnitude. Oh. Great, so we have the distance, and then we can just check, and we'll say maybe 10. So if distance is greater than 10, we're going to want to turn off the light, but only if the light's already on. So if it's enabled, disable it. False. And stop the coroutines, because there's no point in running those if the light is off. We can also add a log here just to let us know that the light turned off. So turned off light. And then something similar for if the player is outside of the, or if they're close to the light, then it will be on, right? So I want to say else if it's disabled, then we're going to want to enable it to be true, turned on light, and restart the coroutine up here. So grab that, paste it in. Cool. So that really is all you need to enable and disable the light. We can check that's working in Unity. And in the scene view, we can just drag the player far away from the light. And there we go, it turned off light. Put them close, and it's going to flicker again. Away and close. And there you have it. We have a flickering light that will turn off when the player is far away and turn back on when the player gets close. Thanks for watching.